But now I don't see those cobbles and curbs. I don't hear the blues anymore.
Rough Trade is giving away a third of the first 3 months of the Rough Trade Club plus new music membership exclusively to 101 Part-Time Jobs listeners. Become a member of Rough Trade Club New Music and you'll receive the Rough Trade Album of the Month straight to your door every month on exclusive vinyl pressing with exclusive bonus material. Club members have received exclusive pressings of albums from Sufjan Stevens, Sprints, The Last Dinner Party, Julie Byrne and Over Mono, just to name a few, this past year alone. Sign up using the promo code CLUB101POD and you'll get the Rough Trade Album of the Month, English Teacher's excellent debut album, This Could Be Texas, on exclusive Galaxy Gold for a third of the usual price. Here's English Teacher on a recent episode of 101.
How many opportunities do you get to write a debut album and have all of this, sport behind us? I don't know, I really like the idea of holding the bar as being like classic songs.
You only get one shot at a debut.
Don't want the album of the month but still want all the benefits? Sign up to the standard tier using Club 101 Pod and you'll still get the first month free. You'll also get free shipping on all orders, 10% off the bar and on secondhand vinyl in store, and exclusive access to sold out Rough Trade events. So don't hang around. Go to roughtrade.com/club and sign up with the code CLUB101POD. That's CLUB101POD and claim money off the album of the month, English Teachers This Could Be Texas, today. This offer's available to UK residents only. Do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Hey, you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs. I'm Giles Bidder, and I speak to bands and artists about how they make it work, their stories of making music the number one thing, because there's a lot of stuff that gets in the way, a lot of adulting that prevents you from that kind of lightning in a bottle, that kind of songwriting that comes from a very sort of pure teenage place, as me and Jake Ewald talk about on this episode. It's Slaughter Beach Dog. Their new album, Crying, Waving, Laughing, Smiling, is out this Friday. It is an amazing album from the songs I've heard, from the singles that are out. Jake is such an incredible picture painter, storyteller, really good feeling for it. I was joking that it's a bit like Wilco for millennials, and I think I'm going to stand by it. There's a real cozy feeling about Jake's songwriting, about Slaughter Beach Dog. They're a band. They got loads of members, 5 of them. They got a lap steel player. One of the guitarist, whoever they are, is a total shredder. And they're going on tour. You can catch them live in England at the end of this month. Manchester, Leeds, Brighton, London and Bristol, and then they're doing a whole bunch of shows across the States in November and January. So Slaughter Beach Dog, crying, laughing, waving, smiling. Excellent band. A lot of history. Jake was in Modern Baseball. So was Ian, who plays bass in the band. A lot of stories, a lot of growing up, a lot of personal growth. We kind of get a little bit deep in this. I get a lot of these episodes are starting to get deep, but I think that's part of it. We're all human, you know. Hey, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. If you're a fan, big enough fan, you can leave a review or a rating on Apple and Spotify. You can leave 5 stars. You can leave some kind words if you wish, and sign up to our newsletter. Just announced today, P45 RPMs. P45 is the form that you get when you get fired or leave your job here in England. So I hope that explains the P45 thing. There's going to be extra interviews there. There's going to be breakfast recipes, but stuff about my days trying to do this podcast. P45 RPMs, that's the 101 Part-Time Jobs newsletter. Go find that at 101parttimejobs.com. All right, before we get into this chat, I'm here with Rebecca from Eka, brand ambassador for Ampolo, which is a great free app for musicians. Rebecca, could you tell us a bit about Ampolo and who's using it and why and when?
So I've been using Ampolo for a few months now. You can upload any song. So I've been playing around with some Eka bits, or I'm a saxophonist, so I play a lot of Charlie Parker and things like that. So anything goes really, and it demixes it within under a minute. So I can take out that part. So especially for jazz use case, if I'm wanting to improv, myself, I'm not then stuck with Charlie's solo. Said no one ever, but it means that I can experiment with my own, which is really, really, really cool. And alongside that, I'm kind of filming myself, seeing what I look like. So it's great, and you're kind of recording that and then sharing it. It's a little bit of that kind of digital, practice room board. We're looking for a drummer, we're looking for a guitarist, with alongside all these super cool tools, and I'm using it for all the different instruments I play.
And it's out now, Ampolo. It's out there to be had. No downsides.
No downsides. Yeah, go download it, and I'll see you in there.
All right. So here's Jacob Ewald of Slaughter Beach Dog here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. I read an interview with Alex G not too long ago where he said like writing a song, he'll finish it and then kind of add it to the scrap heap. And that really resonated with me. And I think, I'm 32 and like had some experiences and worked out a lot what I don't like and worked out some what I do like. And I think a lot of the stuff that I like goes back to being like 13 years old and living in the suburbs, or like a village basically, where we could build bike ramps and we can go skateboarding, and someone's got a flat rail, and you go, and then that turned into playing in bands. And I think a lot about why I do this, like why I'm so drawn to speaking to people essentially about like the sociology of playing in bands or being an artist. And I think it comes down to like building your own world. I think that's just like the most subversive, coolest thing anyone can do.
It's crazy that you would say that, because that's something that comes up more often than ever for us now. Because I totally know what you mean. Also, specifically with skateboarding and playing in bands and putting on your own shows, like when you're a teenager, and that whole thing is like, you have to invent it from scratch, because if you didn't, or, to speak for myself, me and my friends had to invent those things from scratch, because if we didn't, then what the hell else would we do? But it's funny now, after, like, when we did it at the beginning, when we would be, building the ramp or putting on the show at the community center or whatever it was strictly because we wanted to have fun. And that was the way that we could take that into our own hands. But now that the thing has morphed over so many years and it's become kind of a livelihood for everybody, and it's also like the public is more involved now with, releasing records and going on tour and all that stuff. And it's funny how the world building has turned into so much more of a real capital R responsibility. you know?
Right.
Like if we don't maintain the world and pay attention to it and check in on it and plan in advance, then like if we're not maintaining it, it just kind of goes away.
Yeah, you're
So,
nurturing it.
Yeah, totally. And it's just the more we do it, the more I realize that it is, we're kind of we are the creators. And if we're not taking care of it, then it just kind of, you know, who is? It's weird.
Who are like the main players in your world? You've got your band. There's Eric and Emily at Lamo Records. And you learned a lot together, didn't you? You know, during college time and putting out records. Did Eric put out the first modern baseball record with his bar mitzvah money?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of bar mitzvah money and Starbucks money from working at Starbucks at high school. And yeah, we were all learning at the same time, much to my parents' frustration, as I was like telling them I was going to leave school for a while. And they were like, who do we talk to about the details of this when we were going on tour, whatever it was? Yeah. And I said, well, you can talk to Eric, who's our manager, but he doesn't know any more than we do.
Who's the same age as me.
Yes, he's the same age. He knows just as much Jack Spot as we do. But yeah, it's crazy how now we went from not knowing how to do any of this stuff, musically or business-wise or touring or anything, to having this be our livelihoods. And it kind of... even though there's a lot of things that feel a lot more comfortable now, where we do understand, you know, a lot of the basics and it's less terrifying, there is also this sense, kind of the same as the world building, where now it's like, well, we have to stay abreast of everything. We have to keep learning how to do this over and over again, so that we don't like let it kind of slip out of our hands.
It doesn't go to autopilot. I mean, I think I guess I always had that thought growing up. I was like, you know, at 26, that'll be it. You know, and then it'll just be plain sailing. And it's kind of a depressing thought, actually, because I want to keep learning every day. I want to keep learning how to do stuff. I want to do the thing that I've been doing better. I want to have new ideas. Was it always going to be like it is now? As in, you know, like 10 years ago, was it always going to be, in 10 years time, I'm going to be playing music. I'm going to be putting out records and going on tour?
Definitely not. It probably wasn't. It really wasn't until the last couple of years, really, that I thought maybe this will be the thing that I'm doing until I'm old. It was really since between 18 and 28, I think the thought was, I'm going to play music until I have to get a real job. And I'm just, you know, biding my time until the music stops happening and I have to sit. Cause I was one of those kids who was good at school. So in the back of my mind, it was always like this thing that is the opposite of school is really fun. And this is like a cute thing that I get to do for now, but I'm just like sitting here with my hands crossed, preparing for whatever the job is when the job comes down the line. So
isn't that funny? You do something that you're really good at, that you've brought people together. We love the lyrics that you've written, the records that you've been part of, the shows that we've been to, and for you that's always kind of been almost like a reaction to the stuff you're kind of turning away from. That crossover where the thing that, you know, it's the thing you shouldn't be doing, when it becomes the thing that you should be doing. Are you on a bit of a trip with that?
Yeah, it's really thank God for my therapist, because it's really disorienting and it's confusing, and it's honestly, it makes everything so much more difficult, because so much of my time has been and still is spent kind of, you know, fighting this voice in my head that says, you know, at the end of the day, you're not really supposed to be doing this, you know? So it doesn't feel good to think this, but if I like had one, if I fucking found the genie or whatever, my wish would be to go back to when I was 16 or whatever and whisper in my ear, music, you can do music.
Yeah.
Like you can actually take it seriously, you know?
Yeah, you're allowed to.
You're not going to fuck up. You're allowed to. Because that's the thing, being allowed to. It took me so long to tell myself you're allowed to invest in this thing. Even like aside from any sort of success or anything, just to tell myself like you're allowed to fall in love with this thing and let it take up your time if you love it. So yeah, I kind of wish that I knew that.
Mate, I know what you mean. It's like, it's bad thinking, isn't it? Because then that thought becomes like, well, I should have done this back then, but right now I'd be rich, and it's that kind of thing, right? And maybe I'd have had some style. Maybe I'd have dressed well. Maybe if I got those Osiris shoes in 2001, maybe I would have been cool. But mate, I'm completely with you, and I think a big reason why, like, I like asking about this, and again, like, I'm drawn towards it, is because I think we're in the generation of people who feel like we're not allowed to do the thing that we like, yet now the world's opened up, and for one person it might be traveling, or going on some like a spiritual trip, and it's like that thing. It's like, why do we find it so hard to allow ourselves to do things, even though when if we did just focus on music, that you probably wouldn't end up homeless or without any money. If we're lucky to be able to have friends or family that were like, okay, if it really goes down the pan, we'll work it out. That's okay. Yeah. It's a difficult conversation, because then the conversation, for me, I've got family that would let me stay at theirs. That becomes like a case of privilege. But then everyone's their own fucking story. You gotta give yourself a chance, right? Give yourself a try.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
When you started doing Slaughter Beach Dog, and you started like playing shows, and I remember when you came to London for a couple of shows, was that like, were you compelled to be writing at that time? Like, what was driving you, do you think, like reflecting on that time and the earlier times of like Motorbike, JPEG?
Yeah.
What do you think was driving that? No pun intended. Vroom, vroom.
Vroom, vroom. I might be stumped. I don't know. Because when Modern Baseball slowed down, my whole attitude was basically like, I don't want to start over again. I don't want to do this I don't want to get on the roller coaster again. So I don't really know why I did that. Maybe it just felt easier to do and like less of a commitment because it was just me at that point. Or I think we came over and supported Tiger's Jaw at some point. But even with that, it kind of felt, maybe it was just that I was doing other things at that time. Like I had gotten a job, I was recording other people at the studio, and maybe it felt safe for me to do because I was able to convince myself that I wasn't putting all my eggs in this basket or anything.
Right.
It felt more like a hobby or more of just a creative project than an actual life consuming event, kind of the way that Modern Baseball was. Yeah, I think that was probably it. It felt like lower pressure because I was recording more bands and I was working the door at a couple venues in Philly. And yeah, it's funny how when the stakes are low, you can end up doing a lot of stuff that I don't know. At least I wouldn't otherwise do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think, like, is it a case of time? Because when you're doing a few bits and bobs, then you're like, okay, well, I can take time off from doing the door there, and I know I've got that gap from the studio. And I'm still playing music. Like, you're still in that world. I wonder if, I had this massively at the end of Cynics. I was like, I don't like this roller coaster vibe either. Like, I want to get away from music. Like, even though I like going to shows where I know lots of people, I have no care for being
Yeah.
that guy that was in that band. Like, it's nice when people are nice, but I didn't like identify as that person who people had records of, you know, and I really wanted to get away from it for a long time. But then I kind of realized, oh, the reason I started in the first place is because when I'm alone and I'm going for a big walk for 3 hours, that's the thing that actually makes me really excited, is coming up with ideas for records or bands and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's funny. Did you have a moment? Did you have a pinnacle moment when you thought, or like it came towards you, you're like, you know, Slaughter Beach Dog or Jake, you know, writing music is the thing that's me?
I think around the time that I was, and maybe I'll say this every time that we make a record, but I think around the time that I was writing songs on this most recent record, Crying, Laughing, Waving, Smiling, it was like we had moved to the woods, and like I was just really committing myself to the music in a way that I hadn't before, maybe because I had gotten out of the city. But I found like you just said, I found myself going on walks all the time, and not so much coming up with ideas for things, but more just consuming so much music, like really studying it, walking around and listening to records, and then coming home and finding myself writing a song and kind of incorporating things that I had discovered while listening to records. And as I was writing the songs, I did start having this feeling of like, oh, I feel comfortable saying that I know how to write songs now. And that was a big, I don't know. That was a moment for sure, which is not so much, you know, that doesn't really cover the whole picture of the band and, you know, touring and recording and everything. But it was around the time of writing these songs that it was almost like it was kind of an uh-oh moment too, because I went, oh, wait, this is the thing that I decided to know how to do, and now I can do it. So what else am I going to do? But it's nice because I was, you know, looking back at what I was writing and thinking, oh, I think this is okay. You know, like, so yeah, I don't know how it's going to shake out with all the other facets of, you know, being in a band these days, which is just, it's a whole world. Like we were saying, it's maintaining an entire world. Yeah.
Yeah. I
but
mean,
at least from the writing side, that was the moment.
Great to hear. You know, that I come from a family. I'm not sure if I've mentioned it before, but it's something I mention here a lot because, I mean, I didn't really think about it growing up because it was so obvious. But now I realized that my mum being an author and being someone who kind of was always there writing, and you know, her and my dad would fight because dad was like, you know, you're not spending enough time with me and that sort of stuff. That was always going on in the background. And you know, I think as a teenager, that gave me a free pass. She got me a fake ID when I was younger so I could go to gigs because she understood that I just cared about music so much. And I didn't really ever have to explain that to her. And, but that identity, you know, I kind of think of her. I'm like, at what point did I think she was 45 when she was like, I'm just going to try and start writing books. For lots of us, for you playing music, that's something that starts as a teenager. Like, you're going to change so much and have like so much like self-doubt and all the rest of it between like 15 and like what we're early 30s now. So that idea of saying, okay, I write songs, that's what I do. Seems a lot harder. Seems a lot harder to do than to say, to think about.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny that you say about your mom being 45 because that was a big realization for me too. Is the more I would dig into like older music and just reading about artists that I really admired, it was so like encouraging to discover how many of the people that I really respected didn't have those moments until they were in their 30s or 40s, especially authors, for sure. Because so much at a certain point, like, I feel like there's kind of two industries of music. And one is the young person is expressing themselves for the first time. And it creates these like incredible sounds and experiences and creative forms that are so unique and captivating because you're witnessing somebody tap into this part of themselves for the first time. And it's incredible. And that's where you get like all these records that are on the front page of Pitchfork and like getting written up in the New York Times. And it's just this, you have this shining young beam of a person who has just opened their heart for the first time. And it's gorgeous. It's incredible. And then you have the other side, which is the person who is like 48 and they've been doing this for 20 years and they did the thing at the beginning and maybe it was beautiful and maybe it was ugly. And then at a certain point they decided, I'm going to keep going. Whether it's beautiful or ugly or whatever it is, I care about this act and this practice, and I'm going to keep investing myself in it because it makes me whole. Like no matter what the response is or anything. And then you get, you know, I don't know, fucking Tom Waits or like Gillian Welch or Lucinda Williams. And the older I get, it's so comforting to, you know, really dive into those artists' catalogs and their stories and see that there is really like, there's really a life to be made there that is, I mean, Patti Smith, like so many people, that's outside of, you know, age and insecurity and whatever it is, that's you can, I don't know, building the world. Again.
Yeah, even, you know, those big names are are kind of entry points. And then maybe we'll, like we were younger with like Fat Wreck or Epitaph Records, you'd read the line and they'd see and they thank someone and you Google them and then they've got a catalogue of 24 records and we've never even heard of them, but somehow they've managed a sustainable like life model in music. Yeah. That stuff gets me really excited. And that's sort of like the definition of somewhere like KEXP, right? That's what they celebrate. Yeah. That's what they champion.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Just that it's this whole, it's an entire spectrum, you know?
I'm about to interview John Dwyer at the OCs later on today. And he's someone that's done that, you know, and it is, I think that's it. It's like sustainability in music now with, like not like physical records aren't like the beating heart of how someone survives. Yeah. I mean, I just started managing this band Bow Jockey and I helped them out and here and there. And I'll send you the record actually. And we had a great moment last week where we sold out their album release show at the Windmill. It's like, you know, it's like 100. And we were kind of talking just earlier and it was like, okay, you know, there are going to be these high moments and that's great. Coming down from them is hard because the kind of thing that really matters is the slog. And the slog is the thing that happens every other week. Totally. And sometimes the highs are even like make it more difficult because you get so wound up and you like, I feel like when we're having a high is when I start having ideas and I start committing to things in my head that I cannot actually commit to in real life, you know? And it's just like, you have to have this presence of mind that's like, I see that this is a high. I'm going to appreciate it and not take it for granted, but I'm going to, you know, I'm going to shake hands with it and then just, we're going to part ways or whatever it is. If you love it, let it go.
Yeah.
101, 101, part-time jobs, 101, 101, 101, part-time jobs. For me, trying to like do this every day and I'm trying to become like a radio presenter and looking at some commercial stations here, I actually have to be deluded to think that I can make that happen. But actually, I think by being deluded, I'm far more likely to let it happen.
That's the thing too. That's the thing. Same thing with music is it's like riding this line of believing in yourself enough that you can actually try and create the opportunity, but not believing in yourself so much that whenever the opportunity doesn't come, it's like you got hit by a truck, you know? It's walking such a line that is so, and it even comes down to just the playing. Like I talk to our guitar player, Adam, all the time, who does a lot of session work playing guitar in Nashville. And he talks about how when you're in a session for X amount of hours, you have to be able to turn on this creative switch in your brain on a dime when you can just be completely free, completely expressive, completely uninhibited. And then 2 minutes later, you have to turn it off and become an editor when you're listening back to the take.
Right.
And you have to be very strict. And then you got to flip it back on when you go do another take. And it's like that with everything, you know?
And now it feels like, because there's not like big money in the music industry. I mean, who knows what that even looked like, but like we do have to wear 3 hats. That's a funny stuff,
Yes,
isn't it?
absolutely.
Now I'm wearing my producer hat, but you gotta fucking be across it, because that's the way you're going to look after yourself.
Yeah, for sure. It's within the world that you're building, you kind of have to be your own protector.
Right. And what have you done, do you think, to protect your art? You know, does that mean like not hanging out with particular people, or actually that's a pretty direct question, but you know, that's as in like, not that you got like bad friends or something, or,
sure.
But I mean, you moved away from the city. Was that a part of protecting your art?
It wasn't on purpose, but I think it has in some ways. Yeah. There was definitely a feeling of being in the city and being plugged in all the time, being that close to the studio and, you know, that close to my best friends who also happen to be my bandmates. And even just being that close to venues and stuff. It's such I don't know, it's a big compromise and I don't love it. But at the same time, it does afford me this ability to do the thing where if I come home, I can relax because I have a comfortable room with like trees out the window and books on the wall. And if I sit down on the couch, the thing I'm most likely to do is pick up a book. And that's the thing that's going to make me write songs and do a good job. Whereas if I'm in the city and we lived in this like super skinny row home and it had no light, and it was one of those things where like all I ever wanted to do was like get out of the house, or if I was in the house, it was just so like creatively inhibiting that I don't know, it was such an uphill battle a lot of the time. But to have this place where I feel inspired to, you know, actually connect with music and art and literature, and then also just have the separation of, you know, not feeling like my whole identity is tied to this, you know, particular public persona that operates out of this particular place in the country, that is so close to, you know, where we fucking pick up the van, like down to the nitty gritty, you know. It's, the separation has definitely been helpful and actually kind of, you know, nurturing that other part of myself.
You know what I mentioned earlier about like going to local shows and being that person that you know from being on stage or not or whatever. Like, I don't think no one's immune to that. People know your face. People know it's a Philly thing. I imagine at first you'd be like, oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But it's no one's immune to that being real.
Yeah. It's funny though in Philly. Like, I feel like there was a certain point in modern baseball where I would get like talked to more often. But at a certain point, I think I started going to certain shows where it just didn't really happen anymore. And maybe also just, I don't know, I feel like I've been more deliberate in doing Slaughter Beach Dog, where when we do play a show or, you know, whatever, I don't know, I don't really take pictures of people anymore. And I don't give so much of myself away. And I feel like maybe that got picked up on at a certain point, but I don't know, even still, it's hard to be, it's kind of a loaded thing to be in a band and to know like this thing has the potential to totally take over my life. And then you go to do something you love, like go see music at a show. But sometimes it's tricky if like, you know, if I'm feeling really burned out on doing music, but I really want to go see music because I love music. And then I go to the venue and I'm reminded that I love this thing, but I can't get away from it in so many ways. It's like, it's a loaded thing. And I definitely don't have the answer right now. Cause right now I miss going to shows so much. I miss not being able to walk down the street and go to Johnny Brenda's and just watch a band that I don't know. But I don't know. I don't know where the balance is.
You know, your records have been just so amazing the last few years, and your songwriting is just, incredible. And, maybe I don't want this to sound condescending because it's absolutely not in any way. It's been amazing to watch you grow and to see that third, fourth, fifth verse get draw that picture even bigger, and like the arrangements and the instrumentation and you're just such a great lyricist, Jake. It's like a pleasure to read. It's like when you read a book and you finish it, you're like, I'm sad that's over. And when like sentences like bounce from one to the next, that's what your songwriting's like.
Thank you, Giles. That means a lot. Yeah. I don't know. I love it so much. It's what I love. I wish that I could just sit in my house and write the words, and that was the only thing I had to do. I wish I could do that until I die. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Are you a write every day kind of person?
I would love to be. There have been times when I have been, but these days it's hard to do just with personal responsibilities, with band responsibilities. I also always...
Sorry, I'm cutting in there. Are you kind of self-managing?
Well, Eric is our proper manager, and I don't know. I do like more day-to-day type stuff. But really it's just, me and Eric get on the phone pretty much once a week and are just, running down the list of everything to be taken care of. And Eric really is Eric's really the capital M manager, and that he, I don't know, he's gotten really good at it, which is just so cool. Like, you're just saying, remembering the early days of us being like, how the fuck do we do this? But yeah, it's hard because we came from that place, and we came from DIY, and we pretty early on developed this really deep understanding that if we don't have our hands on this, somebody else is going to have their hands on this. And who knows whose best interest they have in mind. We've just seen so many people who we're close with or not as close with who get stuck in these situations where somebody else is responsible for you. Somebody else claims that they're going to be your protector in whichever way. And it doesn't work out that way. And then you get stuck in like a toxic dynamic where somebody else is in control of your life and your art. So it's kind of a thing that we're like figuring out all the time. We really are figuring it out every week. And it's amazing because like whenever we're faced with making a really difficult decision, I'm talking to my best friend about it, and we can be so vulnerable with each other in a way that I know I could not be vulnerable with, certain other people. But
you can say things and like, you're like, I'm not sure if I believe this, but this is what I'm saying right now. This is what I believe right now.
Yes. And Eric knows, and Eric's known me for so long, and I've known him for so long, that when we say those things, we can kind of understand the gravity of them because like we're familiar with each other's, tics and tendencies and anxieties and like overconfidences and every different version of it. Like, it makes things so much easier, but at the end of the day, it's a lot of work because the switch is never really off, And
it's like you got a few people to look up to in that respect. Merge Records.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know much about them, but Anti, I know. Yeah. Alison Crutchfield does A&R there, and it makes me think they must be fucking cool.
They must be cool. Yeah. No, the Merge Records book, the Our Noise, was enormous for both me and Eric and a lot of our friends. I think we found that not at the very beginning. It was like a few years into modern baseball and Lamo and all that stuff. But that was a real North Star for us, seeing that there are adults in this industry who really made that commitment to saying we care about the music and we care about ourselves as people and we care about the artists that we work with as people. And there's a way that you can do this that is not destructive and not manipulative, and that really nurtures this art and these spaces. To have that as like a North Star was really invaluable.
Where do you go for like advice for that stuff now? Is it mostly you and Eric, were you like, have you got some other friends or other people at labels that you may or may not know super well where you can, I don't know, just chat, and like maybe it's just like a hi, hello, how are you kind of conversation? Are you interested in that sort of stuff, asking for advice?
Yeah, that's what I'm currently desperately in the market for, as a as a newly adult man who has only very recently learned that asking for help is crucial to staying alive.
Big time.
I've been finding myself I'll like message people. I mean, a couple weeks ago, I messaged some people on Instagram that I kind of admire, and I was like, like this literally just happened a couple weeks ago, and just be like, can I talk to you? Can I like send you an email just to pick your brain about how you do this? Because we've been doing this for 10 years and I really only know how we do it, So if there's ever a thing that doesn't feel right, it's just kind of diving into the abyss and saying, okay, what are the 1,000 other options we could do here? But Eric's better at it than I am. But yeah, I've definitely entered the phase where I would kill for like a mentor right now. I have all these fantasies about, the kind of classic artist relationships you read about in books where it's like some fucking writer living in a hotel and, you got this kid who comes and makes you coffee and gets your newspapers, and you like the elder artist just tells you everything that you ever wanted to know and make sure you don't fuck up your life. And I really want one of those.
I'd love to be the coffee person at the studio where you learn the great tricks, or you're the person that plays the keys on the track that is an unexpected hit.
Yes, absolutely. That's what we need.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
101 part-time jobs. 101 part-time jobs. 101 part-time jobs. 101 part-time jobs. Crying, laughing, waving, smiling. Even the title is so Jake Ewald for me. Because it's like all the emotions. It's everything all at once. And it's polite and it's kind and it's emotional. Yeah, it's great. When did you start working on this record?
Probably started writing the songs. Man, this always shocks me when I have to say it out loud. Probably started writing the songs at least 2 years ago. And we recorded most of it right around this time last summer, 1 year ago. And we finished mixing and mastering it in like March of this year, I think. So
when you first started writing it, would you like develop the lyrics quite a lot in that time? Would you be like editing yourself?
Yeah, I would. Like I said, I was doing a lot of just walking around and reading and listening to music. And I think I went through a phase where I was only writing on yellow legal pads for a little while. It was kind of cool. I always do things where like I discover something that's inspiring and then I go, I'm going to do this forever. And it lasts for 2 weeks. And I'm like, I need something else that's inspiring.
Something that Matthew McConaughey's done in some great movie.
Yes,
Woody Harrelson did it. I'll do that. Do it.
Yeah, no problem.
But hey, I think that stuff's real though, because it's like a taste. It's like an aesthetic. It's like a window to do something that you think is cool for no other reason that you think is cool.
Mm-hmm. And it's like a season, you let these things come. And I think one of the really helpful things I've come to realize, at least for myself, is that if something becomes unappealing at a certain point, it doesn't invalidate the whole thing. It just means that thing inspired you. There was a season for that. That season has ended, and something else is going to come along. And all of those things are valid because they all get you to the next thing. So I think when I was writing, it was really kind of trying to lean into that, whichever things felt good. And I was doing a lot of, it was really lyric heavy because we didn't really get together. And I mean, well, first of all, I wasn't living in Philly anymore, so we weren't getting together super often to play. And I was doing a lot of just writing without music even. I started doing a thing that turned out to be really fruitful that I'm still doing, where I'll just write, as if I'm writing poetry or prose, and I'll try to latch on to a rhythm, like a rhythm for the words, but that's kind of it. And then I find that, at least for me, it's so helpful because then when I go to add music behind it, as long as I have the rhythm, it's so much easier than trying to come up. I used to always kind of consider melody and rhythm as the exact same thing. And I would sit down with a guitar and my voice and no words and be trying to do 5 things at once, like coming up with a line and the rhythm of the line and the melody of the line. And anytime I would try to do that, it would take me like hours, days, weeks to get anything done. But by kind of finding this flow of, getting the words down and getting the rhythm down, then once I come back to it to either edit it or work on a melody with it or put chords behind it, it's more like decorating and less like building a pyramid,
Yeah. It always feels like chords and melody can like restrict a line, or, I think, some of my favorite like second verses will like change the, and you're like, oh my God, that's the second part of the song. I tell you what, hip hop and rap has done that really well, right?
Dude. Yes.
Where there's the bit.
Totally. Mm-hmm. There's one thing that, I forget who this interview was with, but, I was listening to an interview with something talking about how, there's something about, especially current rap music. Like if you think about Kendrick or Tyler, the Creator, I feel like they do this a lot, but you can do a total 180 like scene change on a dime, where you'll be in the second verse or wherever. And honestly, kind of This Is America does a little bit of it, where like you set a certain scene and it has a certain beat behind it and you have a certain rhythm to your lyrics. And then you can just completely change the beat, like change the tempo, change all the instrumentation, and it can become terrifying. It can become beautiful, but you can do it on a dime.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to kind of like, sometimes I'm jealous of that because it's, a lot. I feel like it's harder in some ways, of course, it's harder to do like with a band. It's especially hard to do when it's just a person and a guitar because there are only so many variables you can change. But it is really inspiring to think of that as a concept and just go like, oh, there are ways that, you can keep it exciting and change the melody a certain way, especially when you get into second verse territory. That's when like you're really getting into your heart. You got to say some shit. You can't be restricted by all this crap. You got to let everybody know,
You can't wear clothes. You got to get naked. You're allowed to get naked in the song.
Yes.
You're allowed to
get naked in the song.
And being from indie rock or punk rock or pop, whatever you want to call it, there are like certain rules that there is like for lots and lots of people. Myself, it happens, doesn't it? You're like, oh, I can't do it. It doesn't even come to mind to do something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. One of the funny ones for me, which is less creative, more technical. No, it is creative. Growing up on early 2000s pop punk records for me, which are so like really studio hi-fi, like sample replaced snares all the way through, I came up with this impression of how a record is supposed to sound. And it was so limiting for so long for us as a band, because I would try to do certain things like in the studio that were impossible to make happen because I didn't have the resources. But at the same time, it was so limiting for me in a creative sense, looking for inspiration, because I would go listen to old records that actually sound like human beings in a room playing music. And I would go, this sounds boring. This is so dumb. I can't listen to this. I'm bored to death. This sounds like crap. And for so long, I didn't listen to that music because my ears weren't accustomed to the sound of people in a room playing music. And then once I finally, got through that door, it was just the floodgates were totally mixed metaphor. But I was fucked up once I got through the door. It was very good.
I love getting fucked up through the door. But it's true. Sometimes it's like you just scratch the surface. You're like, and you keep scratching the surface, and it's like deeper than any of that, like flavor of the week, American Hi-Fi stuff. Tombstone.
Not to say that's not an incredible song.
It's a fucking
incredible
tune.
track, dude. Fucking tune.
Hey, this is a very important question.
Please.
Sum 41, all killer, no filler.
Is it true? Is there filler? I should say, I will admit that I never listened to that whole album. I only knew the singles. But I will say that all of my punk friends, who you know very well, who did listen to the whole album, are extremely quick to say there's tons of filler.
No. They're wrong. They're wrong. 100%
all right, Charles, we got to get some more people on this call.
I know.
We got to do this again.
Hey, that's the classic podcaster line. Hey, thanks so much for the episode. We'll do this again. It's like, the last thing you want to do is do it right again. Yeah, let's have another hour. Thanks so much for being up for doing this. I think 50 minutes is a pretty good time, don't you?
Yeah. No, Giles, this was great. I'm also so fucking jazzed to watch you do this shit. You got the pro setup, you got the distribution, you got the cool guests, you got you're on the road, man. Even back when you got this, you have the fucking column, you're on it, man. It's so cool to see. I feel like you're in your zone.
Definitely in my zone, but very much relate when it's like, okay, got something good going, and now's the time to even be smarter about it. Now's the responsible time. My school report was always loads of potential, should pay attention more. That was the thing. It was every school play I ever had. And that carried on to adult life. Not an complete idiot, but still fucks things up every day. So it's one of my favorite things to ask people. One of my favorite things to ask people is work gaps, work mistakes, fails within the workplace. I'm putting you on the spot here. I wonder if anything comes to mind, and it could be your teenage job, or it could be a job in Philly, or anything in between. Do you have any kind of you strike me as the kind of guy who's kind of on top of his shit.
I do aspire to being on top of my shit, and I feel like I'm okay at it. You know what? I think the problem is though that I'm so obsessed with being on top of my shit that. And I think Jess does this too, kind of. But anytime I have an opening, we might call it, I will always opt to fucking make up work to do. You know what I mean? So instead of going, especially now that we have shit going on, if I have an opening, instead of going, oh, I should write a song, or I should read a book, or I should go for a walk, or I should stretch, or do something good, I'll be like, no, I should reorganize our Google Drive folder, and I should put all this stuff on note cards, or go make new tabs in my email for the 50th time, or whatever the fucking stupid shit is that I don't have to do that just makes me feel like I'm doing something. So that's what I do. And then the day disappears and I feel bad, and I'm like, I should have just made some food. So.
Yeah, relaxed a little bit.
Just relax.
It's funny. What's the kind of have you had any jobs that were very short lived?
Yeah, I think my good story job was after the first summer in college. I came home to live with my parents, and I think it was the same summer that we recorded the first Modern Baseball EP. But I got this job at an Italian restaurant called Mama Roma in Odenton, Maryland or something. And it was your classic, cleaning the urinal, carrying all the food the wrong way, doing all the takeout orders the wrong way. It was a family restaurant, and the two brothers ran it. And the brothers were these very kind of caricature dudes who were just screaming at each other in Italian all the time. and their mom ran the register, and she would just like sit there and read the newspaper and like look down her nose at people. And it was really cool. It was also one of my favorite, like one of the things I loved about going to school when I was a kid and also working a job like that is that like you meet the most fucking interesting people in the world. Like the people that I worked with there were this random 40-year-old dude with like a ponytail who was like a gamer and he was really weird. And then there was this other guy who, I don't know, just like, I don't know, the people that you meet at the place where you didn't all go there to hang out, you know? Like if you go to a show, everybody you're going to meet there is at least into that band that you like. And it can only be so interesting unless somebody is having like a crisis and they do something crazy. But if you're going to like a job where everybody just needs money, it's so much cooler that you're just like, you're exposed to all these people that you totally would not hang out with on a regular basis.
Yeah, who have kind of lifestyles that are just, you've never considered is a lifestyle, or people with those kind of routines. You know, you mentioned that kind of like the gamer bro, and I'm imagining him being like a chef, but and like being like, not okay, this may sound a bit mean, but like being like the nerdiest nerd guy in the world, but thinks he's the coolest mofo there. And that's a brilliant character.
Yeah. And it's also like I feel like when you're in a room with a bunch of people that aren't like you, I mean, happens to me, which is probably narcissistic, but I feel like when I'm in a room with people that aren't like me, I think like, I'm the one who has it figured out. I'm doing life the way that makes sense and is like not insane. But it's so cool to be in a situation where like everybody thinks that, you know, like the gamer dude thinks that he's got it figured out. And I'm the weird guy, like coming home from college, and the grandma who's running the register, reading the newspaper thinks we're all nuts. And she's like the normal one. And it's such a, God, I love that so much. That's what I fucking miss about like being older and not doing weird shit and like living in the woods, is that I don't get dropped into those situations anymore. But it's so good. It's just like being in a TV show.
It is like being in a TV show. And it's like when you make friends with the person who works at the shop or your local, you know, it's the people behind the counters a lot of the time, or you know, the people you become friends with and you're like, oh yeah, that's funny. And it's very refreshing. What a great way to live.
Yeah. It's pretty
good
cool
stuff. Hey, Jake, thank you so much for being up for this, man.
Yeah, Giles, thanks for having me. It was honestly such a pleasure catching up, talking to you. I always love it. Thanks, and hopefully I'll see you in September.
Yes.
When we're over yonder.
Yeah, Brixton Electric. That's going to be amazing.
I'm excited.
It's a cool venue. It's a really cool venue.
I think, is Brixton Electric different from Electric Ballroom?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Then I've never been. Excited to check it out.
It's really nice. Hey, thanks so much for the shout out at the Moth Club, by the way.
Oh yeah, dude.
That was amazing. That was so much fun. I felt much love in my heart. Thank you for that. You made me feel very loved. Of course. Cheers, man.
It was real. Hell yeah. Well, great catching up, Giles.
So there he was, man of the hour, Jacob Ewald on 101 Part-Time Jobs. Slaughter Beach Dog's new album, Crying, Laughing, Waving, Smiling, is out on Friday. It's going to be a ripper. You need to give yourself a couple of days to recover from it, I reckon. Catch him on tour at the UK at the end of this month, November in the States, January in the States. And yeah, cheers for listening. If you want to leave a review, if you want to leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify, that would be massively, massively appreciated. And don't forget to sign up to the P45 RPM's newsletter. Ampolo is the app that you can learn how to shred on with its stem removing AI technology. You can download a Rage Against the Machine track, take out Brad Wilkes if you want, take out Zach De La Roche, and you can be the singer in Rage Against the Machine only on Ampolo. Check the link in description to download it there. All right, nice one. See you again soon, later this week with Mickey Blanco. And also just announced the Paper Kites from Australia are going to be coming on Friday. So subscribe and get notified. Cheers.
Ba
something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino.
That's right. ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes.
ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.